Her ex pushed her down the stairs, unaware. The Mafia Boss was watching. What he did next was shocking. The hiss of the espresso machine was the only sound Madeline Carter ever made. She was a ghost in a worn-out apron, moving through the small Bronx coffee shop on silent, aching feet. The noise, the steam, the smell of burnt beans. It was her shield. For 10, sometimes 12 hours a day, she could hide behind the counter, keeping her head down and her voice low, a quiet, "Here is your change," or a whispered, "Have a good day." She was a creature of long sleeves, even in the humid New York summer. The sleeves hid the faded constellation of bruises on her wrists, old fingerprints left by a man who promised her the world and then tried to keep her from it. Today, a new, angry purple mark darkened the skin just below her jaw, a gift from last night. She had disguised it with a layer of cheap, caked-on concealer, but it throbbed with every word she spoke. Her eyes, once a bright, hopeful blue, were now dull and guarded, constantly scanning the door, flinching whenever a man's voice rose too loud or a laugh was too sharp. The other baristas, chatty girls with bright nails and weekend plans, had long given up on drawing her out. Madeline was just quiet, broken. Some thought. But she wasn't broken, not yet. She was just holding her breath, waiting for the life she was supposed to live, the one buried under thousands in student debt and the suffocating weight of her sister's tuition, to finally begin. Her shift ended at 7. The sun was setting, bleeding orange and purple over the rooftops. But Madeline felt no relief. The dread that started as a knot in her stomach around 6:30 now choked her. Her phone had been vibrating in her pocket all afternoon. 15 missed calls, 23 texts, all from him. "Tyler, Maddie, baby, pick up. I just want to talk. I know you see this. Don't ignore me. I drove by your work. You look tired. I can take care of you. Stop playing games. Madeline, you know you are mine. I am coming over. We are finishing this." She was terrified, but it was a familiar terror. A cold, heavy blanket she'd been wrapped in for 8 months. Going to the police was a fantasy. She had tried that once, early on. The officer had looked at her, then at Tyler, who stood beside her with a look of charming, concerned apology. "It was just a misunderstanding, officer," Tyler had said, his hand resting solicitously on her back. She gets emotional. "We're fine." The officer had told them to keep it down. She had left him 3 weeks ago, taking nothing but her purse and the clothes she was wearing, moving into a cramped one-bedroom on a lower floor of a pre-war building with a faulty elevator. She hadn't told him the apartment number, but he'd found her. He always found her. She walked home fast, head down, keys clutched between her knuckles. He was not in the lobby. A small, false wave of relief hit her. Maybe he had given up. Maybe the last text was a bluff. She pushed open the heavy door to the stairwell. The elevator was a steel trap she would not get in. She preferred the dim, concrete smell of the stairs, even if it meant climbing 6 flights. She was on the 3rd-floor landing when she heard the door slam open below. "Maddie!" She froze. His voice echoed up the shaft, bouncing off the concrete. "Maddie, wait! Just talk to me!" She ran. He took the stairs 2 at a time, his footsteps heavy, angry. "Why are you running from me? I love you!" He caught her on the 5th-floor landing, grabbing her by the arm and spinning her around. The bag of groceries she'd been carrying, a single yogurt and an apple, tumbled from her grip. "Tyler, please," she whispered, her back against the cold wall. "I told you. It is over. Just leave me alone." "Over?" He laughed, but the sound was raw, jagged. He was drunk, or high, or both. His eyes were wide, pupils pinned. "It is not over until I say it is. You think you can just walk away after everything I did for you?" "You did not do anything," she said, her voice shaking but desperate. "You took my money. You hurt me. Please, Tyler, I am done." "You are done?" He advanced, crowding her. "You are nothing without me. You are a stupid, sad little girl. You need me." "No," she said. It was the smallest sound, but it was the bravest thing she had done in a year. "No, I do not." His face, So handsome at first, twisted into something ugly. You ungrateful. He shoved her. Not a slap, not a grab. It was a full-bodied, two-handed shove. Fueled by alcohol and rage, Madeline was exhausted. Her legs weak from the climb. She had no balance, no defense. Her head snapped back, cracking against the cinder block wall. The world tilted. She stumbled backward through the empty space where the stairs turned. There was a moment of weightlessness, a sharp, terrifying intake of breath. Then she fell. Her body hit the concrete steps below with a series of sickening, flat thuds. A bone in her left arm snapped with a sound like a dry twig. Her head hit the edge of a step, and the world went from gray to black. She crumpled in a heap on the landing, still, a dark pool of blood already beginning to form under her hair. Above her, on the landing she'd just fallen from. Tyler Blake stared down, his chest heaving. "Maddie?" he whispered. He looked around. The stairwell was empty. "Maddie, come on, stop playing." He took a few steps down, nudged her limp leg with the toe of his boot. "Maddie?" She did not move. Panic, cold and sharp, cut through his haze. He looked up the stairwell, then down. Empty, silent. He had not been seen. He turned and fled, his sneakers pounding down the stairs, out the lobby door, and into the dark. Rainy street. He was wrong. He had been seen. One floor above, the door to the penthouse stair access stood open by a single inch. Alessandro Sandro Romano had been standing there for the last 3 minutes, his body perfectly still. He had heard the raised voices, a man's and a woman's. He recognized the woman. She was the quiet girl from the 6th floor, the one who always looked at her shoes in the elevator, the one who seemed to be disappearing, piece by piece, every week. He'd been returning from a late meeting, flanked by his 2 bodyguards, Marco and Leo. He preferred the stairs. They were private, predictable. When he heard the argument, he had put a single hand up, a silent command for his men to halt. He watched the entire thing. The pathetic pleading, the man's rage, the shove, the fall. Marco had surged forward, hand inside his jacket, but Sandro's arm shot out, barring his way. He did not move. He just watched, his face a mask of cold, controlled calm. He watched as the man, Tyler, hesitated. He watched the man nudge her body, and he watched the man run. Only then did he move. "Marco," he said. His voice a low rumble. "Find out who he is. I want his name, his job, his family, and where he sleeps. I want to know what he ate for breakfast. Go." Marco nodded and disappeared down the stairs. Sandro turned to Leo. "Get the car. Bring it to the service entrance. Call Dr. Alessi. Tell him I need him at my apartment. Now." Leo vanished. Sandro descended the stairs, his expensive leather shoes making no sound on the concrete. He knelt beside Madeline. The gash on her hairline was deep, and the blood was matting in her soft brown hair. Her breathing was shallow. He slid one arm under her knees and the other behind her back, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. She felt fragile as a bird. He carried her up, past his own floor, to the private elevator that led directly into his penthouse. Madeline woke to the smell of lavender and the baffling sensation of softness. The sheets were silk, or something close to it, and the pillow under her head was a cloud. Her first thought was that she was dead. Her second was a throbbing, all-consuming pain that started in her skull and radiated down her entire left side. She gasped, her eyes flying open. The room was not heaven. It was a bedroom the size of her entire apartment, furnished in shades of charcoal and cream. One entire wall was glass, a glittering panorama of the New York skyline. And in a dark leather armchair in the corner, a man was watching her. She screamed, or tried to. It came out as a dry croak. She scrambled backward, tangling herself in the sheets, her eyes wide with animal terror. "Who are you? Where am I? What do you want?" The man did not move. He was tall, even sitting, with broad shoulders that filled out his dark, collarless shirt. His black hair was cut short, precise. His face was all harsh angles, a strong jaw, a straight nose, and eyes so dark they seemed to drink the light. He looked less like a man and more like a statue carved from unforgiving stone. "You are safe," he said. His voice was the one from the stairwell. Low and calm, it held a trace of an accent. Something old world and smooth. "You are in my apartment. You live in apartment 6B. I live in the penthouse." "What happened?" she whispered, her hand flying to her head, her fingers brushed against stitches. "Your ex-boyfriend, Tyler, was waiting for you," Sandro said, his tone flat, relating facts. "You argued. He pushed you down the stairs. I saw it." The memory slammed into her. Tyler's face, the shove, the fall. Oh God. She ripped the sheets back, intending to run. Her legs hit the floor, but they were weak, shaking. The room spun violently. "He will come looking for me?" She panicked, grabbing the bedpost for support. "I have to go. I have to hide." "He will not," Sandro said. The absolute certainty in his voice stopped her. It was not a reassurance. It was a verdict. She stared at him. This stranger, this man of shadows and silence, and then the dam that had been there for a year finally broke. The fear, the pain, the humiliation, the exhaustion, it all came crashing down. She collapsed back onto the bed, folded in on herself, and began to sob. It was no cry for help. It was the sound of a woman who had nothing left. She wept for her lost scholarships, for the sister she was failing to protect, for the body that ached, and for the spirit that was almost, but not quite, extinguished. Sandro Romano was not a man given to comfort. He had seen violence, death, and tears. They rarely moved him, but this was different, this quiet, broken weeping in the dark of his sterile, safe apartment stirred something cold and hard in his chest. He did not touch her. He did not offer her false platitudes. He simply sat, a silent sentinel, and let her cry. He waited until the gut-wrenching sobs subsided into wet, hiccuping breaths. She finally looked up, her face a mess of tears and smeared blood from the gash. "Please," she whispered, her voice raw. "Please, do not call the police. You do not understand. He will get out. He always does. It just makes him angrier. Please." Sandro studied her. He had already made the decision. Cops were a blunt, messy instrument. They had no place in his world, or in this. "I will not call the police," he said. Relief washed over her face, so profound she almost fainted. Thank you. I should go." "You are not going anywhere," he said, not unkindly. "My doctor has seen you. You have a concussion, 3 broken ribs, and a fractured ulna. He gave you something for the pain. You will sleep here. You will stay here until you are healed. I do not have any money. I am not asking for money." She looked at him, confused, terrified. "Then what do you want?" Sandro stood, and the full weight of his presence filled the room. He was a man accustomed to command, to fear, to absolute obedience. But as he looked at her, small and broken in his enormous bed, his voice was surprisingly gentle. "I want you to rest," he said. "I will handle Tyler." "Handle him? What does that mean?" "It means you do not have to be afraid of him anymore." He walked to the door. "Sleep, Madeline. You are safe here." He closed the door softly behind him. Hours later, after the pain medication had pulled her back under, Sandro returned. He stood at the foot of the bed, watching the slow, rhythmic rise and fall of her chest. She looked like a child, her face pale, the stitches a stark black line against her skin. He saw the yellowing, faded bruise on her cheek, the one that matched the shadows under her eyes, his jaw clenched, a muscle ticking. He was a man of order. He ran his world with precision. He despised chaos, and he despised men who used their strength against those who had none. He had built an empire on a code, and Tyler Blake had just violated it in his own building. His phone vibrated. A single, silent pulse. It was Marco. He stepped out onto the vast, dark terrace, the city lights spreading out below him like a field of fallen stars. "Talk to me," he said. "We got him?" Marco's voice was low, professional. "Tyler Blake, 29, bartender, a lot of small-time gambling debt. He's reckless." "And?" Sandro knew there was more. "And he is connected. He has been running the product for the East Blades for the last 6 months. Looks like he is trying to get in good with Vince Morano." Sandro's blood ran cold, but his face remained impassive. Vince Morano, a rival, a sloppy, ambitious, and violent man who had been trying to move into Sandro's territory for a year. A man Sandro had been patiently and quietly dismantling. He looked back through the glass at the sleeping woman. This was no longer a simple matter of justice. This piece of garbage. This Tyler had just dragged his pathetic, violent little life into the middle of a war, and he did not even know it. "Tell the men to stand down," Sandro ordered. "Do not touch him." "Boss?" Marco was surprised. "He's no longer a personal matter. He's a business one. I want 24-hour surveillance on him, and on her. Double the security on this building. No one gets in or out without my word. Understood?" "Understood." Sandro hung up. He stayed on the terrace, the cold night air whipping at his shirt. He looked at Madeline, a pawn in a game she did not know she was playing. He had promised to protect her. He had not realized it would mean protecting her from his own world. The first thing Madeline registered when she woke was the light. It was not the thin, gray light of her Bronx apartment, but a bright, clean, $1,000,000 light, pouring in through a wall of glass, illuminating dust motes dancing in the sterile air. The second thing was the pain. Her head felt like a cracked melon, and a fire was burning in her ribs. Her left arm was immobilized in a heavy, professional-looking sling. She was in his bed, in his room. The sheets were charcoal gray and impossibly soft. A set of clothes, not hers, was folded at the foot of the bed, a pair of black sweatpants and a soft cashmere sweater. Her old, blood-stained jeans and t-shirt were nowhere to be seen. The gesture, meant to be kind, felt like an erasure. "I have to get out of here," she whispered to the empty room. She swung her legs over the side of the bed, her bare feet sinking into a plush carpet. The room was vast, a minimalist landscape of steel, glass, and dark wood. She felt like a stray cat who had wandered into a museum. She found him in the main room, an expanse of white marble and leather that seemed to merge with the sky. He was standing by the glass, holding a small porcelain cup, looking down at Central Park as if he owned it. He probably did. "I am leaving," she said. Her voice was a reedy croak, but she tried to fill it with stone. Sandro turned, unhurried. He was dressed in a simple, dark gray Henley that emphasized the width of his shoulders and chest. He looked less like a man and more like a high-end weapon. "Good morning," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Dr. Alessi will be here in 1 hour to check your stitches." "I am not waiting. I need my clothes. I need to leave." "Your clothes were soiled. They have been cleaned. They are in the guest closet." He inclined his head. "But you are not going anywhere." The old, familiar panic rose in her throat, tasting like acid. "You cannot keep me here." "I am not keeping you," he said, his voice flat, devoid of patience or malice. It was the voice of pure logic. "I am preventing you from being stupid. You have a severe concussion. You have 3 fractured ribs. You require observation. Where exactly? Do you plan to go? Back to apartment 6B? He knows where you live. Madeline, he will be back." Every word was a cold, hard fact. She had nowhere to go. No money, no sanctuary. She could not go back there. Not yet. And her sister, Emily, she could not, would not, drag Emily into this. She deflated, the false bravado vanishing. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice small. "For now," he said, setting his cup down. "I want you to sit and eat." The days that followed were a disorienting blend of fear, boredom, and a strange, creeping sense of safety. Sandro was a ghost in his own home. He would disappear for hours, his voice a low murmur from a closed-off office. Men in sharp, dark suits, Marco, Leo, and others she did not name, would come and go, never speaking to her, their eyes sliding past her as if she were another piece of expensive, breakable art. She learned his rhythms. He woke before the sun, drank his espresso, and read the physical newspaper. He spoke Italian on the phone when he was angry. He ate a simple, late dinner. He never watched television. She stayed in the guest room, which was larger than her entire apartment. He had a library, and she lost herself in it, reading thick histories of the Italian Renaissance. She found a sketch pad and pencils in a desk drawer and, for the first time in years, She sketched the skyline, the clouds, the sharp angles of the furniture. She was sketching his hand from memory, all strong lines and controlled power, when he found her on the third evening. "You are an artist," he said. It was not a question. She snapped the sketchbook shut, her face flushing. "No, I was an art history major. I just doodled." "You do not doodle," he said, walking closer. "You observe. May I?" She was terrified to say no. She handed him the pad. He flipped through the pages, the city, the chairs, a half-finished drawing of his own face, captured in shadow. He stopped on the drawing of her sister, Emily, a smiling, bright-eyed girl she had drawn from a photograph in her wallet. "Your family," he said. "My sister." He was quiet for a long time, studying the drawing. He looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable. "You are intelligent. You have talent. Why are you pouring coffee and letting a man like that destroy you?" The question was blunt, brutal. It stung. "You do not know anything about me," she snapped, pulling the sketchbook from his grip. "You do not know how it starts. You do not know anything." "I know," he said, his voice suddenly very quiet, "that it starts with charm." Madeline stopped. She looked at him. "It starts with flowers," Sandro continued, his gaze drifting back to the city, his voice taking on a distant, colder tone. "With promises. He makes you feel like the only person in the world. Then the walls start to close in. A suggestion. 'That skirt is too short. Why are you working so late? Your friends are a bad influence.' Then he takes your money. Then he takes your phone. Then he takes your name. And then he takes his hand. And you tell yourself it is love, because you are too ashamed to call it what it really is." Madeline was trembling. "How do you know that?" Sandro did not look at her. He stared out the window at a city that had taken everything from him and that he had taken back. "I had a sister," he said. The words sounded like they were pulled from his chest with hooks. "Sophia, she was bright. She loved to laugh. She met a man, a flashy man with a fast car and a beautiful smile. I was young. I was busy building this life. I was 22, trying to be 50. He paused, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "I saw the bruises. She said she fell down the stairs. I told her to be more careful. When he put her in the hospital, the doctors said she hit her head. An accident. She never woke up." "Oh, Sandro," she whispered, her own pain forgotten. "The man went on a vacation," Sandro said, his voice flat, dead. "He did not come back, but it did not matter. I was too late. I fixed the problem, but I could not fix her. I looked at you in that stairwell, and I saw her. I will not be too late again." He had cracked open his chest and shown her the scar. She finally understood. She was no one to him. She was a proxy, a ghost. "I am not Sophia," she said, her voice soft but firm. Sandro finally turned to look at her. His eyes were not cold now. They were burning. "I know," he said, his voice a low growl. "She was weak. You are not. You just think you are." It had started with charm. That was the part nobody understood. They saw the bruises, the fear, the way she flinched from loud noises, and they wondered why she stayed. They did not see the beginning. Tyler had been a flash of sunlight in her gray, grinding life. He walked into the coffee shop on a rainy Tuesday, flashed a 1,000-watt smile, and tipped her $50 on a $2 drip coffee. "For the most beautiful girl in the Bronx," he'd said, his voice like warm honey. He had listened to her. He'd asked about her art, her classes, her dreams of visiting Florence. He'd seemed angry on her behalf. "You are brilliant," he'd said, taking her hand. "You should not be wasting your time here. I will take care of you." And he had. At first, he'd paid for dinners. He'd bought her a new dress. Then, the suggestions. "You should let me handle the bills, baby. You've got enough to worry about with school." He'd helped by taking her debit card, linking her accounts to his. Then, the control. "Why are you going out with Maria? She is a bad influence. She does not get you like I do. Do not wear that. You look available." The first time he hit her, it had been a slap. It was so fast, so shocking, that she had not even processed it. And he cried. He had fallen to his knees, clutching her, begging for forgiveness. "I just love you so much," he'd sobbed. "I see other guys looking at you, and I just get crazy. I will never, ever do it again. I promise." It was a lie. Each accident was followed by a honeymoon, each act of violence by a bouquet of flowers. By the time he was taking her tuition money for his investments, gambling debts, she later learned, she was already trapped. She was isolated, broke, and so profoundly ashamed. She could not even tell her sister. The girl who had dreamed of Florence was gone, replaced by a quiet, haunted woman who knew how to cover bruises. While Madeline was healing, Sandro was working. The nightclub was called Onyx, a throbbing, purple-lit hellhole in a part of town Sandro never visited, but his information had been precise. Tyler Blake was at the bar, feeding dollar bills to a girl in a mesh top. He was high, jittery, but also arrogant. He felt like he had gotten away with it. The music was a physical weight, but it seemed to part for Sandro. He, Marco, and Leo walked through the crowd. They did not push. People simply moved. Sandro stopped directly behind Tyler. "Tyler Blake." The name was spoken at a normal volume, but it cut through the bass. Tyler froze. He turned around, a sloppy, belligerent look on his face. "Yeah? Who's ask?" The words died. Tyler was looking at a man in a bespoke suit that probably cost more than his car. But it was not the suit. It was the man's stillness. It was the two men behind him, who looked like they were carved from granite. "I live in the building," Sandro said, his voice pleasant. "The penthouse." Tyler's face went from pink to corpse white. He knew. He knew. "I do not know what you're talking about," Tyler stammered, trying to laugh it off. "I do not know any—" "She fell," Sandro said, his voice a razor's whisper that only Tyler could hear. "It was a tragic accident. She fell down the stairs." Yeah, that is right," Tyler said, nodding too fast. "She is clumsy." "She is," Sandro agreed. "So she will be staying with me for a while, to recover." He leaned in, the scent of his expensive cologne a suffocating presence. "And you are going to forget her. You will delete her number. You will delete her from your life. If you see her on the street, you will cross it. If you hear her name, you will not." You cannot tell me what to do," Tyler blustered, but there was a tremor in his voice. "This is not a command," Sandro said, placing a heavy, pastoral hand on Tyler's shoulder. The grip was iron. "This is a courtesy, a one-time explanation of the new facts of your life. Because if you think about her, if you say her name, if you even walk on her side of the street, I will find out." He squeezed, just once. A small, sharp pressure. Tyler's knees buckled. "And your friends, the East Blades," Sandro continued. "Your man, Vince Morano, they cannot help you because when I make a man disappear, not even his mother can find the body." He let go. "Enjoy your night." Sandro turned and walked out, the crowd parting once more. Tyler Blake stood there, shaking, his drink untouched. He was terrified, but beneath the terror, a more dangerous emotion was brewing. Humiliation. He had been punked in front of his crowd. He pulled out his phone. He did not delete Madeline's number. He called his associate. He was reckless. He was stupid. And he was angry. 4 more days passed. Madeline's stitches were out, the cast on her arm a hard, white shell. She was in the kitchen, a vast, cold space, when Sandro came in, looking frustrated. "My housekeeper is in Florida," he announced, "and I cannot figure this machine out." He was gesturing to a state-of-the-art espresso maker that looked like a car engine. A small, rusty laugh escaped Madeline's lips. "You do not know how to make coffee?" "I know how to order coffee," he corrected. "I do not make it." "Move," she said, gently nudging him aside. She was in his space, her small body close to his. She could smell the soap on his skin, clean and sharp. She worked the machine with the familiar, practiced ease of her old life, the hiss of the steam and the smell of the beans a comfort. She handed him a perfect cappuccino. He took a sip. His dark eyes met hers over the rim of the cup. "You are good at that." "It is what I do," she said, shrugging. "No," he said, his voice low. "It is what you did. It is not who you are." That night she offered to cook, a real meal. Penne alla vodka. She found the ingredients in his cavernously empty, but well-stocked, pantry. He opened a bottle of wine, a red so dark it looked like velvet. He watched her cook. She showed him how to chop garlic, her small, uninjured hand moving with precision. He stood behind her, watching, and she was acutely aware of his size, his warmth. They ate at the kitchen island, the city lights twinkling below. They talked. She told him about her dream of opening a small art cafe. He told her about growing up in Sicily, fishing with his grandfather. It was normal. Dangerously normal. "You have a little," he said, his voice a low rumble. He reached up, his thumb moving slowly toward the corner of her mouth. She flinched. It was not a small movement. It was a violent, full-body recoil. Her stool scraped on the marble, and she slammed back against the counter, her good hand flying up to protect her face. "No, do not, please." The world went silent. The warm, wine-buzzed kitchen was gone, replaced by the cold, terrified landscape of her life with Tyler. Sandro froze, his hands still in the air. The warmth in his eyes vanished, replaced by a cold, formal mask. "I apologize," he said, his voice stiff. He retracted his hand. "I wish you had sauce." "I am sorry," she whispered, shaking, mortified. "I am so sorry. I thought—" "Do not apologize," he said, his voice flat. He took her plate. The night was over. "It is late. You should rest." She fled to her room, her face burning with shame. Later, sleep would not come. She was trapped between the past and the present, between the man who hurt her and the man who scared her in an entirely different way. She must have drifted off, because the next thing she knew, she was screaming. She was back in the stairwell. Tyler was standing over her, his face twisted in rage, his boot raised. The door to her bedroom burst open. Sandro stood there, silhouetted in the hallway light. He was in sleep pants, his chest bare. "He is here!" she screamed, nerves scrambling back against the headboard, tangled in the sheets. "He is here! He is in the room!" "Madeline," Sandro said. His voice was not soft. It was a command, a steel bar in the chaos. "Look at me." She looked. "You are in my home. You are in the penthouse. There are 6 men between you and the street. You are safe." He did not move from the doorway. He did not come closer. He did not make the mistake of trying to touch her. It was a dream. Her breathing was ragged, her body slick with a cold sweat. It felt so real. "I know." He stayed in the doorway. She slowly came back to herself. The shadows in the corner were just chairs. The man in the doorway was not Tyler. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Stop apologizing for being a victim," he said, his voice hard, but not at her. She was still trembling. "Will you stay? Just for a minute?" "Not here. Just out there." He looked at her, his face unreadable in the dark. He nodded once. "I will be in the chair, the one in the corner. Go to sleep. Madeline." He sat in the dark, in the same armchair he had been in when she first woke. He did not move. He did not speak. He just was a silent, powerful guardian. His presence was a comfort, a heavy, safe blanket. She could feel his stillness, and it calmed her own shaking. Her breathing slowed, her eyes grew heavy. "Sandro?" she whispered. "I am here." His voice came out of the darkness. She fell asleep. Sandro Romano sat in the dark for hours, watching her. He watched the moonlight trace the curve of her cheek, the stitches above her eye. He saw her small, uninjured hand curl by her pillow, and he felt something in his chest that he had buried with Sophia, a fierce, terrible, and hopelessly protective tenderness. He was visibly affected, the ice around his heart cracking. He knew, in that moment, that this woman was no longer a ghost he was saving. She was his, and in his world. That was the most dangerous thing she could possibly be. The cage, no matter how gilded, was still a cage. After 10 days in the penthouse, Madeline felt like one of Sandro's priceless, untouched sculptures, beautiful to look at, but cold, and forbidden to leave her pedestal. Her ribs were a dull, persistent ache, but her arm, now in a lighter cast, no longer required a sling. She had a full run of the apartment, but she had not breathed fresh air in over a week. "I am going crazy," she announced on the 11th morning. She found him in his office, a room of dark wood and the smell of old books. Sandro did not look up from the ledger he was studying. The doctor said rest. The doctor said to avoid strenuous activity. He did not say to become a prisoner. "I just want to walk, just for a block. Please." He looked at her, his dark eyes assessing. He saw the new color in her cheeks, the fire in her eyes that had been absent. She was healing. She was getting restless. He nodded. "Once. Leo will drive you." "I do not need a driver. I just want to walk around the block." A flicker of something, annoyance? Or was it humor? "It is not a request. Leo will escort you. You will not leave his sight. Understood?" "Understood," she bit out. The lobby felt like a foreign country. The doorman, who had never once made eye contact with her when she lived in 6B, now rushed to open the door, addressing her as Miss Carter. Outside, the noise of a New York afternoon hit her like a physical blow. The air was crisp, smelling of exhaust and roasted nuts. It was wonderful. Leo, a mountain in a bespoke suit, stayed 3 paces behind her. He did not speak. He just existed, a silent, walking extension of Sandro's will. She walked for 10 minutes, just drinking it all in, on impulse. She directed Leo to her old neighborhood. "I just want to see my old coffee shop," she explained. Leo just grunted and turned the car. The shop looked the same cracks in the window, the same faded, help wanted sign. She felt a wave of nausea, a sharp, homesick feeling for a life she had hated. "Stay in the car," Leo commanded. "I'm just going to the window," she said. But as she got closer, she saw him, a man, across the street, leaning against a bodega. He was not looking at the shop. He was looking at the black sedan she had just exited. He was unremarkable in every way. Jeans, black hoodie, sneakers, but his gaze was fixed, professional. He saw her see him. He did not look away. "Madeline!" Leo's voice was sharp. He was at her side in an instant, his hand on her good arm. "We're leaving." "Who is that?" she whispered, her heart turning to ice. "Get in the car." The man across the street took a casual drag from his cigarette, but his eyes followed them all the way. When they returned to the penthouse, Sandro was waiting. He was not in his office. He was standing in the middle of the living room, his arms crossed. "Who was he?" Sandro demanded. "I do not know. A man." "Across the street." "You were followed," he said, his voice a flat, cold sheet of steel. "From the moment you left the building, you are not to leave this apartment again. Not without me. Not for any reason. Is that clear?" "You are overreacting," she said, her voice shaking. "Am I?" he shot back. "That man works for Vince Morano. Your ex-boyfriend has been busy. He has been telling his new friends all about the girl the boss in the penthouse is keeping. He has made you curious." "I am not a curiosity. I am not yours." "You are here," he said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. "In my home, in my care. That makes you mine to protect, and they just made this 1,000 times more complicated." Later that evening, an older, impeccably dressed man arrived. He had silver hair and kind, tired eyes. Madeline heard them in the office. The older man's voice was a calm, reasonable murmur. Sandro's was not. "She is a civilian. Alessandro," the man who Sandro called Angelo, said, his voice drifting out. "This is not our way. You are compromised. I am handling it. Angelo." "Handling it? You put a hand on Tyler Blake in a public place. You threatened him. You did not finish it. You left a loose end, an angry, connected loose end. Now, Vince Morano is using this boy. He's using this girl. He sees a weakness. He smells blood. He thinks the great Alessandro Romano has finally developed a heart, and he wants to see if he can cut it out. He can try. Do not be a fool." Angelo's voice was sharp. "He has already made his move. The East Blades are testing your territory. They are feeling you out because of a barista. Remove her. Send her away. Let us finish this the right way." There was a long, heavy silence. Madeline pressed her ear to the door, her heart hammering. "She stays," Sandro said. The words were final, a judge's gavel. "You will double my security. You will find out where Morano is sleeping. And you will remind our associates what happens to men who test our territory. Handle that, Angelo. I will handle the girl. Madeline fled back to her room before the door opened. The first package arrived 2 days later. It was not delivered by the doorman. It was left at the service entrance, addressed to Maddie. One of Sandro's men, a new one she did not recognize, brought it up, his face impassive as he scanned it, for she did not want to know what. It was a shoebox. Inside was a small, white teddy bear, its eyes a vacant, plastic black, and a letter. Her hands shook as she opened it. Maddie, my love, I'm so sorry. I blacked out. I did not. I would never. You know, I would never hurt you. I am getting help. I swear. Baby, I am in a program. I am clean. I just miss you so much. That man, whoever he is not you. He's not safe. Please, just call me. Just let me hear your voice. I love you. T. She dropped the letter as if it were on fire, but the words were already in her head. I am getting help. I am clean. The old poisonous tendrils of guilt began to wrap around her heart. What if he was telling the truth? He had a sickness. He was not a monster. He was just sick. She was the one who had abandoned him. She was the one shacked up in a billionaire's penthouse, being protected by the mafia. A second package arrived the next day. 12 roses. Half wilted, the card said. I am nothing without you. She did not tell Sandro. She hid the box. She threw the flowers down the garbage chute, but she kept the letter. She read it again and again, the words blurring, her resolve turning to a sick, confusing mush. Sandro found the box in her closet that evening. He had come in to bring her a fresh set of towels. He stood in her doorway, the teddy bear clutched in one massive fist. He had not yelled. He was worse. He was perfectly, terrifyingly calm. What is this? It is nothing, she said, trying to snatch it. It is junk. It is a lie, he said, his voice like gravel. And you kept it. Why? Why did you keep it, Madeline? He said he is getting help, she whispered, her face burning. He said he is sorry. He is sorry, Sandro repeated, his voice dangerously soft. He walked closer, crowding her, the way Tyler used to. He is sorry? He threw you down a flight of stairs. He left you to bleed to him. That man works for Vince Morano. Your ex-boyfriend has been busy. He has been telling his new friends all about the girl the boss in the penthouse is keeping. He has made you a curiosity. I am not a curiosity. I am not yours. You are here, he said, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. In my home, in my care, that makes you mine to protect. And they just made this 1,000 times more complicated. Later that evening, an older, impeccably dressed man arrived. He had silver hair and kind, tired eyes. Madeline heard them in the office. The older man's voice was a calm, reasonable murmur. Sandro's was not. She is a civilian. Alessandro. The man, who Sandro called Angelo, said, his voice drifting out, This is not our way. You are compromised. I am handling it, Angelo. Handling it. You put a hand on Tyler Blake in a public place. You threatened him. You did not finish it. You left a loose end, an angry, connected loose end. Now, Vince Morano is using this boy. He is using this girl. He sees a weakness. He smells blood. He thinks the great Alessandro Romano has finally developed a heart. And he wants to see if he can cut it out. He can try. Do not be a fool. Angelo's voice was sharp. He has already made his move. The East Blades are testing your territory. They are feeling you out. Because of a barista. Remove her. Send her away. Let us finish this the right way. There was a long, heavy silence. Madeline pressed her ear to the door, her heart hammering. She stays, Sandro said. The words were final, a judge's gavel. You will double my security. You will find out where Morano is sleeping, and you will remind our associates what happens to men who test our territory. Handle that, Angelo. I will handle the girl. Madeline fled back to her room before the door opened. The first package arrived 2 days later. It was not delivered by the doorman. It was left at the service entrance, addressed to Maddie, one of Sandro's men. A new one she did not recognize, brought it up, his face impassive as he scanned it, for she did not want to know what. It was a shoebox. Inside was a small, white teddy bear, its eyes a vacant, plastic black, and a letter. Her hands shook as she opened it. Maddie, my love, I am so sorry. I blacked out. I did not. I would never. You know I would never hurt you. I am getting help. I swear. Baby, I am in a program. I am clean. I just miss you so much. That man, whoever he is not you. He's not safe. Please, just call me. Just let me hear your voice. I love you. T. She dropped the letter as if it were on fire, but the words were already in her head. I am getting help. I am clean. The old, poisonous tendrils of guilt began to wrap around her heart. What if he was telling the truth? He had a sickness. He was not a monster, he was just sick. She was the one who had abandoned him. She was the one shacked up in a billionaire's penthouse, being protected by the mafia. A second package arrived the next day. 12 roses, half wilted. The card said, I am nothing without you. She did not tell Sandro. She hid the box. She threw the flowers down the garbage chute, but she kept the letter. She read it again and again, the words blurring, her resolve turning to a sick, confusing mush. Sandro found the box in her closet that evening. He had come in to bring her a fresh set of towels. He stood in her doorway, the teddy bear clutched in one massive fist. He had not yelled. He was worse. He was perfectly, terrifyingly, calm. What is this? It is nothing, she said, trying to snatch it. It is junk. It is a lie, he said, his voice like gravel. And you kept it. Why? Why did you keep it, Madeline? He said he is getting help, she whispered, her face burning. He said he is sorry. He is sorry, Sandro repeated, his voice dangerously soft. He walked closer, crowding her, the way Tyler used to. He is sorry. He threw you down a flight of stairs. He left you to bleed to death in a stairwell. He's not sorry. He's a coward. He's weak. And you are reading his letters? You do not understand, she cried, pushing at his chest. It was like pushing a wall. You do not know what it is like. You think it is so easy to just turn it off. For months, he was all I had. He what? Sandro's voice rose. For the first time, it was not a yell. It was a sharp, contained explosion that rattled the very air in the room. He what? Madeline? He loved you? He took care of you? Is that the lie you are still telling yourself? He threw the teddy bear across the room. It hit the wall with a soft, pathetic thump. You are a fool if you believe him, he roared, and you are putting us all in danger by entertaining it. She shattered, the sound of his raised voice, the violence of the action. It transported her. She was not in a penthouse. She was back in her old apartment with Tyler, his face purple with rage, his hand raised. No, she gasped, her hands flying up to her face. No, please do not, I am sorry. She ran. She ran out of the room, past his shocked, suddenly pale face. She ran out of the penthouse, slamming her hand on the private elevator button, tears blurring her vision. She ran past the doorman, who called after her. She ran out into the cold, dark street with no coat, no money, and no destination. She just ran. She ran until her ribs felt like they were on fire, until her lungs were screaming. She ended up at the subway. The noise, the smell. The anonymity was a comfort. She was invisible here. She was also drunk. She did not remember buying the bottle. A small, plastic pint of vodka she must have paid for with the crumpled $20 bill she had found in her pocket. She sat on a bench, the train rattling past, and drank. She drank to numb the panic. She drank to numb the confusion. She drank to kill the hope that Tyler was telling the truth, and to kill the fear that Sandra was. Maddie? The voice cut through the fog. She looked up. Tyler was standing in front of her. He looked good. He was wearing a new leather jacket. His hair was cut. He looked sober. He looked like the man she had first met. Tyler, she slurred. The world was tilting. Baby, what are you doing here? He knelt, his face a mask of concern. You are freezing. You are... Oh, Maddie, are you drunk? He yelled at me, she whispered, a tear rolling down her cheek. He is just like you. I know, Tyler said, his voice soft, full of feigned understanding. I know. Baby, I told you. He is not safe. Come on. Let's get you out of here. Let's get you warm. He put his hands under her arms, lifting her. She was pliant, weak. I'm sorry, T, she mumbled. I got your letter. I know, he said, his voice hardening. I knew you would. You are my girl. You always were. He was dragging her, her feet shuffling on the grimy concrete, toward his car, a black sports car parked illegally in a bus zone. Where are we going? She asked, the fog clearing slightly, a small alarm bell ringing. We're going home, he said, and he shoved her toward the passenger door. No, she screamed, planting her feet. No, Tyler, let me go. Get in the car, Madeline. His voice changed. The charm was gone. The old, familiar rage was back. Stop making a scene. He grabbed her good arm, twisting it, trying to force her into the seat. Let go of me. A black sedan, a massive Mercedes, screeched to a halt in the middle of the street, its high beams illuminating the scene like a stage play. The driver's door flew open. Sandro did not run. He moved like a panther, all controlled, lethal grace. He was on them in 3 strides. He was not the man from the penthouse. He was not the man who had sat in her dark room. This was the man Angelo had spoken of. This was the killer. Get your hand off her, Sandro said. His voice was quiet. It was the most terrifying sound she had ever heard. Tyler, blinded, enraged, let go of Madeline and spun around. Who the hell are... Sandro hit him. It was not a punch. It was a precise, brutal strike to the throat. Tyler collapsed, gagging, his hands flying to his neck. Madeline screamed. Get in the car, Sandro said to her, his back to her, his entire focus on the man on the ground. No, Sandro, do not! Tyler, desperate, pulled something from his pocket, a knife. He lunged, a wild, sloppy, upward cut. Sandro moved with a speed that was almost inhuman. He blocked the knife hand, and Madeline heard a sharp, sickening snap. Tyler screamed, a high, thin wail, as the knife clattered to the pavement. Sandro grabbed the front of Tyler's new jacket, hauling him to his feet as if he weighed nothing. He slammed him against the side of his own car, the metal groaning in protest. You touched her, Sandro whispered, his face inches from Tyler's, his voice a low, vibrating growl of pure, unadulterated hatred. Please, Tyler wept, tears of pain and terror streaming down his face. I gave you a warning. I was polite, Sandro hissed. He put his forearm across Tyler's throat, pressing, cutting off the air. Now there are no warnings. I will unmake you. I will pull you apart, piece by piece. I will start with your fingers, then your teeth, and the last thing you will ever see is me. Sandro, Madeline shrieked, clawing at his back. Sandro, stop! You are killing him! Please! He did not seem to hear her. He was gone, lost in a red, cold rage. Please, she sobbed. Sandro, stay with me. Do not do this. Stay with me. Her words, stay with me, finally cut through. He froze. His entire body was rigid, trembling with adrenaline. He held Tyler against the car for 1 more second, 2. Then abruptly, he let go. Tyler slumped to the ground, a sobbing, broken heap. Sandro turned. His face was pale, his eyes black, his chest heaving. He looked haunted. He looked at her. His hands, one of them bloody, from Tyler's mouth, clenched at his sides. She did not run. She did not flinch. She was drunk and terrified and shaking, but she walked right up to him. She saw the monster, and she was not afraid. She grabbed the front of his shirt with her good hand, her cast thumping against his chest. Do not ever leave, she whispered, her voice thick with vodka and tears. Stay with me, please. Sandro, just stay with me. He stared down at her, the sounds of the city, the sirens. Tyler's sobs all faded away. There was only her face, pale and tear-streaked, and her eyes, looking at him as if he were the only solid thing in the world. He put his hands on her face, his thumbs gently wiping her tears. His hands were shaking. Madeline, he breathed, his voice raw. Stay, she pleaded. He crushed his mouth to hers. It was not a gentle kiss. It was not the kiss from the kitchen. This was raw and desperate and full of all the rage and terror of the last hour. It was a kiss of possession, of desperation. It was a claim. He kissed her like he was drowning and she was his last breath. She kissed him back. She clung to him, her fingers tangling in his hair, her body pressing against his. She met his hunger with her own, a desperate, frantic need to be held, to be safe, to be his. He pulled back, just an inch, his forehead resting against hers. "He will never," he panted, "ever touch you again." He kissed her again, slower this time, softer. It was a promise. It was an apology. It was a question. She answered by kissing him back, pulling him closer. He lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist, and carried her to his car. He did not look back at Tyler, who was already being surrounded by the men who had just arrived in a second. Silent, black car. They did not speak on the ride back to the penthouse. The moment the private elevator doors opened, he was on her. He pinned her against the cold marble wall, his mouth devouring hers. She fumbled with the buttons of his shirt, needing to feel his skin. He tore his mouth from hers, his lips trailing down her neck, his teeth grazing the sensitive skin of her shoulder. "Sandro!" she gasped, her head falling back. He unzipped her jacket, pushing it off her shoulders, his gaze fixed on her. He was gentle with her cast, his hands surprisingly tender as he eased the sleeve down her arm. "You are safe," he murmured, his voice thick. "I will keep you safe." He led her to his bedroom, not the guest room. "Hi." He undressed her slowly, his dark eyes never leaving hers. He kissed every place Tyler had bruised. He kissed the stitches on her head. He kissed the scar on her arm. He treated her body not as a broken thing, but as a map he was learning, a treasure he was uncovering. She was trembling, but not from fear, from need. When they were both bare, he laid her on the cool, dark sheets. He looked at her, his body a masterpiece of hard muscle and tight control. "Madeline," he said, his voice raw. If this is not..." She silenced him by pulling him down. "Stay," she whispered against his lips. "Just stay." He was tender. He was intense. He was everything. He moved slowly, his body teaching hers a new language, one not of pain and fear, but of pleasure and possession. He held her, his hands tangled in her hair, murmuring her name against her skin, a prayer and a plea. She clung to him, her nails digging into his back, meeting his intensity with her own, a silent, desperate scream. "You are real. I am real. We are here." It was a collision, an absolution. Two broken, lonely people, finding an anchor in the storm. Afterward, she fell asleep almost instantly, utterly spent, her body curled against his bare chest, her hand resting over his heart. Sandro Romano did not sleep. He lay awake in the dark, his arm locked around her, the smell of her skin, the soft weight of her body. It was almost painful. He was haunted. He had come so close to killing a man in the street. For her. He had crossed a line he had sworn he never would. Angelo was right. He was compromised. He looked down at the woman sleeping in his arms, her face peaceful for the first time. He had saved her, and in doing so, he had doomed himself. He held her tighter, terrified by how much he had come to care. Madeline woke to the smell of coffee and the feeling of being utterly alone in a bed that was not hers. The space beside her was cold, the sheets already drawn tight, military style. Last night, the world had shattered and reformed, and she had clung to him as the only solid point in the new, terrifying landscape. This morning's silence was a statement. She found him in his office, not the living room. He was dressed, not in the soft sleep pants of the previous night, but in a crisp, dark suit, his back to her, staring out the glass wall at the city below. He was a fortress again. The man who had held her, who had whispered her name like a prayer, was gone. In his place was the boss. "Sandro," she said, her voice small. He turned slowly. His face was a mask of cold, polite granite. There was no trace of the man who had trembled in her arms. "Good morning. Madeline, I trust you slept well. I have had breakfast brought in." It was a dismissal. He was a stranger. A cold, sharp pain, worse than her ribs, lanced through her. "No," she said, her voice finding a strength she did not know it possessed. She walked into the room, pulling the belt of his silk robe, his robe, which she had found in the closet, tighter. "You do not get to do that." His eyebrow raised, a fraction of an inch. "Do what?" "This," she said, gesturing to the space between them. "Shut me out. Pretend last night was just an event. You do not get to be one person in the dark and another person in the light. I am Sandro. Whatever this is, you do not get to make me your secret and then your stranger." He stared at her for a long, heavy moment, the air crackling. He was assessing her, the newfound steel in her spine. He had wanted her to be strong, but he had not, perhaps anticipated her being strong against him. "What happened last night," he said, his voice a low, controlled rumble, "was a mistake." "Was it?" she challenged, walking closer. "Or was it just inconvenient? Does it make it harder for you to be the man in the suit? Does it make it harder to be cold?" "It makes you a target," he said, his voice snapping, a flash of the real man, the one who was terrified. "It makes you more than just a girl I am protecting. It makes you a liability, my liability." "I am not a liability," she whispered, her heart aching. "I am a person. The person you kissed like you were starving. The person you were last night. You were you. The man who sat in my room when I was scared." He turned away, slamming his hand on the desk. "And now you must be scared. Now you must be smart. Tyler is gone. But he was just a symptom. The disease is Vince Morano, and he knows. Now, he knows I have an interest." "So what? You're just going to hide me in this tower until he gets bored? I'm going to keep you safe. I have a sister," Madeline said, the words cutting through his anger. Sandro froze. "I know. I have not seen her in weeks. I have not called her from your phone, and I lied. I tell her I am fine. I tell her I am staying with a friend. She is all I have. Sandro, I cannot be safe in your penthouse while she is out there, alone, wondering where I am. What if Tyler or this Morano? What if they—" She could not finish. The thought was too monstrous. "They will not," Sandro said, his voice flat. "I have had men on her since the night I brought you here." Madeline stared at him, stunned. "You have been watching my sister?" "I have been protecting my sister's sister," he corrected, his voice rough. He looked exhausted. He looked like last night's man. "She is safe, Madeline. I promised you. I will not be too late. I have to see her," she insisted. "Not just a phone call. I have to see her. I have to look her in the eye and tell her something. I have to know she is okay. Please, Sandro. If last night meant anything, please." He closed his eyes. She had used the one weapon that could break his walls, his own word, his own new, terrifying vulnerability. "Fine," he said, his voice tight. "This afternoon. Leo and Marco will drive you. They will not go in the building, but they will wait outside. You will not be more than 1 hour. You will not tell her about me. You will not tell her that. You will tell her you are staying with me. As a guest, that is all." It was a compromise. Massive. She knew what it cost him. She nodded, her heart aching with a mixture of gratitude and fear. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, his voice, softer now, stopped her. "Madeline," she looked back. "Do not make me regret this," he said. What she did not see was the other side of the city. In a dark, smoky back room of a social club, Vince Morano was laughing. He was a large man, sloppy in his dress, but with the sharp, cruel eyes of a predator. Tyler Blake sat opposite him, or rather, slumped. His face was a ruin of purple and black. His arm was in a sling, a real one, set by a back-alley doctor. "So he broke your arm, huh?" Vince chuckled, taking a bite of a cannoli. "And your face. And he took your girl." "She is not he. He is crazy," Tyler stammered, his pride and his body equally shattered. "He threatened to kill me." "He should have," Vince said, his voice suddenly cold. He wiped his fingers on a napkin. "If he was smart, if he was the old Sandro, you would be a grease spot in the East River right now. But he is not. He's getting soft, emotional. He is spending all his time in that glass tower, playing house with your little barista." "He's not soft," Tyler whispered, remembering the feel of that forearm on his throat. "He is a monster." "He is a man," Vince corrected. And all men have a weakness. For his father, it was gambling. For his uncle, it was pride. For Sandro, it is this girl. And her little sister. Tyler looked up, his one good eye widening. Oh, you did not think about that? Vince said, smiling. While he is watching you, he is not watching her. The sister, Emily, lives in a little walk-up in the South Bronx. No security, no boss, just a college kid. What are you going to do? Tyler asked, flickering something. Was it fear in his voice? I'm going to send a message, Vince said, leaning back. I'm going to knock on my sister's door. Just rattle the cage, see what kind of animal comes out. Madeline's heart felt like it was going to beat out of her chest as she climbed the familiar, creaking steps to Emily's apartment. It was a 4-floor walk-up, and the smell of stale cooking oil and dust was a sharp, painful reminder of her old life. Leo and Marco were in the black sedan at the curb, two silent, imposing statues. She knocked. Emily, it is me. The door flew open. Emily, a smaller, brighter version of Madeline, with wide, intelligent eyes and a spray of freckles, burst into tears and threw her arms around her. Maddie, oh my God, Maddie, where have you been? She sobbed, pulling her inside. I have been going crazy. You call, but you sound weird. And what happened to your arm? And your head? Shh. It is okay. I am okay, Madeline said, hugging her tight, her eyes scanning the small, cluttered apartment. It was messy, piled high with textbooks and half-empty coffee cups, but it was safe. I just had an accident. I fell. I told you. You fell, Emily repeated, pulling back, her eyes narrowing. She was smarter, sharper than Madeline. You fell? And what? You're living in a penthouse? Maddie, who are these people? I see the car. The men in suits. They were here yesterday, too. And the day before. They are watching me. Madeline's blood ran cold. What? I'm not stupid. They sit across the street in the same black car. They do not do anything. They just watch. Is it Maddie? Is it him? Is it Tyler? No, Madeline said too quickly. No, Tyler is gone. Out of my life. I promise. This is complicated. The man I am staying with is very protective. He's the one who helped me get away from Tyler. These men, they're just security. He's worried Tyler might come back. So, you are what? Dating some rich guy now? Emily asked, her arms crossed, her voice dripping with skepticism and hurt. It is not. It is not like that. Madeline lied, hating herself. He's just a friend. He's helping me. That is all. I just wanted to meet you. I wanted to know if you are okay. I am fine, Emily said, softening. I am just worried. This is not you. Maddie, the cast, the stitches, the shadows under your eyes. You look terrified. I'm not terrified, Madeline said. Not anymore. And as she said it, she realized, for the first time, it was almost true. They talked for an hour. Madeline told a carefully edited version of the truth. She was recovering. She was safe. She was finally free of Tyler. Emily, seeing the new, hard certainty in her sister's eyes, finally began to relax. They ordered pizza. The sun began to set. Madeline knew she had to leave. Her hour was up. I have to go, she said, her heart sinking. Will you be back? Emily asked, her voice small. I will try. I will call you. Tomorrow, I promise. There was a knock on the door. Both sisters froze. Who is that? Madeline whispered. I do not know. The pizza guy already left. Emily whispered back. The knock came again. Harder this time. Not a knock. A pound. Emily Carter, a man's voice, muffled, yelled. Open up! Go! Madeline hissed, shoving Emily toward the small bedroom. Go in the closet, now! Maddie, what? Do it! The door jamb splintered. The lock gave way. The door flew open, slamming against the wall. Two men in black ski masks burst in. They were not professionals. They were thugs. They were holding bats. Where is she? One of them, a thick, bull-necked man, yelled, his eyes wild. Madeline stood in the middle of the living room, her body frozen, her mind screaming. This was it. This was the world Sandro lived in. This was the price. Get out, she stammered. Well, the man said, his eyes raking over her. Look what we have here. The big sister. Vince said you might be here. This is perfect. He took a step. Madeline took a step back, her hand flying to her mouth, her eyes darting to the bedroom, where she could hear Emily whimpering. Leave us alone, she pleaded. We do not have any money. We do not want money, little girl. The second man, a thinner, wiry one, cackled. We are here to send a message. He raised his bat. The sound that came next was not from inside the apartment. It was from the hallway. It was a crash, the sound of a body hitting a wall, a wet, sickening thud. The man with the bat froze. He and his partner looked at each other. Leo appeared in the ruined doorway. He was not a man. He was a force of nature. His face was a mask of cold, professional rage. He had a deep, bloody gash on his forehead, but he did not seem to be aware of it. You should not have done that, he grunted. The man with the bat swung. It was a stupid, panicked, slow-motion move. Leo did not even bother to duck. He caught the bat in his massive, meaty fist, ripped it from the man's grip, and broke it over his knee. Then Marco was there, behind the second man, a black, metallic something in his hand. He pressed it to the man's neck. There was a sound like a giant insect, a bzzzt, and the man convulsed, his eyes rolling back in his head, before he crumpled to the floor, smoking. The bull-necked man looked at Leo, then at the man on the floor. He tried to run. He ran directly into Sandro. Sandro was not calm. He was not in a suit. He looked like he had run up the 4 flights of stairs. His chest was heaving, his tie gone, his hair a mess. His eyes were black holes of pure, undiluted terror. He saw Madeline, standing, shaking, but safe. His eyes darted to the bedroom. Emily, he said, his voice a rasp. She is in the closet, Madeline sobbed. Sandro's gaze fell on the man Leo was holding by the throat, the one who had tried to run. He saw the ski mask, the bat, the ruined door. He saw the nightmare he had been living for weeks, made real. He walked across the room. He did not speak. Boss, the man stammered, his eyes wide with the realization of who he was looking at. It was just a scare, Vince. Sandro punched him. It was not a street fight, it was an execution. A single, short, brutal, right-hand cross. It was the sound of a bag of cement hitting a concrete wall. The man's head snapped back, and he was unconscious before he hit the ground. Silence. Madeline was staring at him, her hand over her mouth, her whole body shaking. Emily was screaming from the closet. Get her, Sandro said to Madeline, his voice raw. He did not look at her. He was staring at his own bloody knuckles. Get your sister. Pack a bag, both of you. You have 5 minutes. Where are we going? Madeline whispered. To a safe house, he said. He finally looked at her. The terror was gone, replaced by a cold, hard, terrifying calm. This ends. Now. The safe house was a high-rise apartment on the Upper East Side, but it had no view. It was all steel doors, reinforced windows, and an icy, sterile, beige-on-beige decor. It was a fortress. It smelled like nothing. Emily was huddled on a beige sofa, wrapped in a blanket, shaking, a cup of tea untouched in her hands. She had not spoken a word since they had left her apartment. Madeline turned on Sandro. She was not crying. She was furious. This is your world, she hissed, her voice a low, vicious thing. This is what you brought to my door. They came for me, and they found her. She is a kid. She is just a kid. Sandro. I know, he said, his voice quiet. No, you do not know. You do not know what this is. This is not business. This is my sister. She is all I have, and you put her in danger. You're in your war. Madeline, he said, taking a step toward her. Do not, she snapped. Do not touch me. Just end it. Whatever this is, whoever these people are, end it. I do not care what it takes. I do not care who you have to. I do not care. Just make it stop. She was begging him to be the monster, the one she had feared. He looked at her, and his mask, the cold, hard mask of the boss, just broke. He looked like the man on the terrace, the one who had lost his sister. I have been trying, he whispered, his voice cracking. I have been trying to protect you. To get you free without blood, without this, he gestured to the sterile, beige room. I have been trying to not be the man my father was, the man they are. He was confessing. To her. I do not want that, she said, her own anger dissolving, replaced by a sudden, profound understanding. She saw him. She saw the man who had almost killed Tyler, and she saw the man who was now standing in front of her, looking utterly broken. She stepped toward him, her hand, her good hand, reaching up. She touched his face, his jaw, which was clenched so tight it was trembling. I do not want you to become a monster again, she whispered. Not for me. He closed his eyes, his entire body shuddering. He put his hand over hers, holding it to his face. You do not understand, he breathed. Before you there was nothing, just the business, the code, the cold. I was already gone. He opened his eyes. They were wet. You saved what's left of my soul, Madeline. He pulled her to him, his arms, not like a lover, but like a drowning man. He buried his face in her hair. You saved me. She held him, her cast pressing awkwardly between them. So let me save you again. Do not do this their way. Do not do this that way. He pulled back, his hands gripping her shoulders. His eyes were fierce. I will protect you. I will protect her. I will end this, but I will not become him. I promise you. He kissed her. It was not the desperate, hungry kiss of the night before. It was fierce. It was a promise. It was an oath, sealed in the sterile, beige fortress, a pledge of something in a world that did not allow for it. It was desperate, and it was pure. I will protect you, he murmured against her lips. I will end this, my way. He let her go. He turned, his face calm again, but it was not the cold, granite mask. It was something new. It was resolved. He pulled out his phone. He made one call. Angelo, he said, his voice low, clear, and full of an authority that chilled the room. Set the meeting. Now. Vince Morano, I will talk to him. The meeting took place in the back room of a restaurant in Little Italy that had been closed since the 90s. The air smelled of stale cigar smoke and lemon polish. It was neutral ground, or as neutral as ground could get when two armies were standing on the precipice of war. Alessandro Romano sat at the head of the mahogany table. He wore a dark navy suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his hands folded on the wood. He looked calm. He looked like a man discussing a merger, not a blood feud. To his right sat Angelo, his consigliere, looking pale and tight-lipped. Across from him sat Vince Morano. Vince was a sprawling, fleshy man who wore his wealth like a costume. Too much gold, too much cologne, a grin that showed too many teeth. He was eating a sfogliatella, crumbs dusting his expensive lapel. I'm listening, Vince said, chewing. But I have to tell you, Sandro, I'm surprised. You call a sit-down? You, the great Romano? Usually, you just send a bullet. I am offering you a choice, Sandro said. His voice was quiet, barely carrying over the hum of the refrigerator in the corner. I am prepared to transfer the shipping contracts for the Red Hook terminals to your organization. 30% of the import revenue. Immediate effect. Angelo stiffened beside him. This was a fortune. It was a piece of the Romano Empire that had taken 2 generations to build. Vince stopped chewing. He stared at Sandro, his small eyes narrowing. The Red Hook terminals. That is $5 million a year. 7, Sandro corrected, if you run them right. And for this generous gift, Vince wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. What do I give you? Territory. Drugs. You give me the boy, Sandro said. Tyler Blake. Vince stared at him. Then, a low rumble started in his chest. He chuckled, then he laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. You are joking! You are giving me the keys to the city for a bartender? For a gambling addict who owes me $20,000? I want him, Sandro said, his gaze unmoving. Alive! Tonight! Vince leaned back, the chair creaking under his weight. This is about the girl, isn't it? The one with the pretty eyes, the one who fell down the stairs. He shook his head, a look of mock pity on his face. Oh, Sandro. They said you had gone soft. I did not believe it. I thought, no, not him. He's a shark. But look at you. You are gutting your own house to buy a pet. Do we have a deal? Sandro asked, his voice hardening. "No," Vince said. He stood, brushing the crumbs from his jacket. "No deal. Because if you are willing to give me the terminals for a punk like Tyler, imagine what you will give me when I actually squeeze you. You are weak, Sandro. And in this world, the weak get eaten." Vince turned to leave. "Keep your terminals. I will take them anyway. And the boy? He stays with me. He has potential." Sandro remained seated until the door closed. Only then did he unclench his hands. His palms were bleeding where his nails had dug into the skin. "He refused," Angela whispered, staring at the table. "You offered him the crown jewels, and he spat in your face. He thinks he has won," Sandro said, standing up. He buttoned his jacket. "He is wrong. Now my conscience is clear." The war did not start with a grand battle. It started with a drive-by shooting at 2 a.m. A black SUV rolled past one of Sandro's legitimate warehouses in Queens. Automatic weapon fire raked the front of the building. 2 night watchmen were hit. A secretary, working late on payroll, was showered with glass but miraculously unharmed. Sandro received the call at the safe house. He listened, his face turning to stone. He hung up and looked at Madeline, who was sitting on the edge of the bed in the guest room where he had insisted she sleep. She was watching him, her eyes wide with fear. "They hit the Queens distribution center," he said. "2 men are in surgery." "Is it because of me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It is because Vince Morano is a greedy animal." Sandro lied. He walked over to her, kneeling so he was at her eye level. He took her hands. "I have to go. I have to organize the response. You stay here. You stay with Emily. Do not leave this apartment. Do not open the blinds. Sandro, please." She gripped his hands. "Do not go out there. If this is war, it is a war he wanted," Sandro said. "Now I have to finish it." He kissed her forehead, a chaste, protective gesture, and left the room. Madeline could not sleep. The apartment air was thick with tension. Men were moving in the hallway, their voices low, urgent whispers. She felt like a ghost haunting a fortress. She walked down the hall, intending to get water, when she heard voices coming from the kitchen. It was Sandro and Angelo. The door was cracked open. "You are risking everything," Angelo was yelling, though he kept his voice to a harsh hiss. "The men are restless. Alessandro, they see you distracted. They see you making emotional decisions. Vince hit us because he knows you are focused on her. He's going to pick us apart piece by piece while you play bodyguard." "I am not playing bodyguard." Sandro's voice was ice. "I am protecting an innocent woman from a mess we created. We did not create it. She brought it to us. She brought that lunatic ex-boyfriend to our doorstep." Angelo slammed his hand on the counter. "She is poison. Sandro, I know you care for her. I know she reminds you of Sophia. But Sophia is dead, and if you keep this up, you will be too." Madeline backed away, her hand over her mouth. The words hit her like physical blows. "She is poisonous. You will be dead." She retreated to her room, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. They were right. Every second she stayed here, she was painting a target on Sandro's back. He was offering up his empire, his life, to protect her from a problem that was hers to solve. She looked at Emily, sleeping soundly in the other bed, exhausted from the trauma of the break-in. If she stayed, Emily was in danger too. If she stayed, Sandro would die. The logic was twisted, born of panic and guilt, but in the dark of the night, it felt like the only truth. She had to leave. She had to take herself off the board. If she was gone, Vince Morano would have no leverage. If she was gone, Sandro could focus on being the boss he needed to be. She grabbed a notepad from the nightstand. Her hands shook as she wrote, "I cannot let you destroy yourself for me. I am sorry. Please keep Emily safe. Do not come after me." She left the note on the pillow. She pulled on her coat. She did not wake Emily. That was the hardest part. The safe house was a fortress. But Madeline knew the shift change. She had been watching. At 4 a.m, the night team swapped with the early morning crew. There was a 5-minute window where the back stairwell was monitored only by a camera that swept back and forth. She timed it perfectly. She slipped out the service door, down the fire stairs, and into the cool, dark alley behind the building. She made it 10 steps. A car engine idled to life. Headlights blinded her. She froze, shielding her eyes. A black sedan blocked the end of the alley. The passenger door opened. "I knew you would come out," a voice said. It was not a soldier. It was not Vince Morano. It was Tyler. He stepped into the light. He looked terrible. His arm was in a sling, his face a map of purple bruises and healing cuts. But his eyes were bright, feverish. He held a gun in his good hand, but it was pointed at the ground. "Tyler," she whispered. "I knew it," he said, walking toward her. He sounded almost happy. "I told Vince. I said, she does not belong with them. She is scared. She will run." He did not believe me, but I knew. "Tyler, please." She backed up, hitting the brick wall of the building. "Just let me go. I am leaving. I am going away." "We are going away," he corrected. "Together. I have a plan. Maddie, we are going to drive west. I have money. Vince gave me money. We can start over." "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, Tyler, you tried to kill me." "I made a mistake," he screamed, the sudden rage echoing in the alley. He flinched, then lowered his voice. "I made a mistake. I was sick. But I am better now. I saved you. Maddie, I saved you from him. He is a killer. You know that." He was close now. He smelled of sweat and desperation. "Get in the car," he said, gesturing with the gun. "Please, baby, do not make me do it the hard way. Just remember how good we were." She looked at the gun. She looked at his wild eyes. She realized with a sinking, cold clarity that there was no reasoning with him. He was not living in reality. She got in the car. The warehouse was not far. It was an abandoned textile factory near the river, a hollowed-out shell of brick and rusted iron. The dawn was just breaking, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and gray. Tyler dragged her inside. He did not tie her up. He seemed to think this was a date. He paced back and forth in front of her, waving the gun, talking fast. "We will go to Chicago," he said. "I have a cousin there. Or maybe Seattle. You like coffee, right? We can open a shop. Just us. No mafia, no debts." Madeline stood by a rusted pillar, shivering. The cold was seeping into her bones. "Tyler," she said softly, "you are working with Vince Morano. He is the mafia. He's just a means to an end." Tyler laughed, a high, frantic sound. "I used him, Maddie, I used him to get to you. Once we are gone, he does not matter." "He will kill you," she said, "and Sandro will find us." "Sandro is dead," Tyler yelled, spinning on her. "Vince is hitting him tonight while he is looking for you. Vince is burning his house down. It is over. Maddie, I won." A heavy metallic clang echoed through the cavernous space. Tyler spun around, raising the gun. At the far end of the warehouse, a massive rolling metal door was slowly rising. The morning light poured in, silhouetting a figure standing in the opening. It was Sandro. He was alone. He wore a long black coat, the collar turned up. He walked in calmly, his hands visible at his sides. He did not have a weapon drawn. "You did not win, Tyler," Sandro said. His voice was not loud, but it carried perfectly in the silence. "Stay back," Tyler shrieked, grabbing Madeline and hauling her in front of him. He pressed the barrel of the gun to her temple. "I will do it. I swear to God, I will do it." Sandro stopped. He was 20 feet away. He looked at Madeline. His eyes were dark, filled with an agony she had never seen, but his face was composed. "I know you will," Sandro said. "I know you are capable of hurting her. You have done it before." "She is mine!" Tyler screamed. "You tried to steal her, but she chose me. She left you." "She left to save me," Sandro said, taking a slow step forward. "Because she is selfless, something you and I do not understand, do we?" "Shut up!" Tyler pressed the gun harder. Madeline whimpered. "We are the same, you and I," Sandro continued, his voice hypnotic. Low, he spread his hands. "We look at something beautiful, and we want to own it. We want to lock it in a box so no one else can touch it. We tell ourselves it is love, but it is not love. Tyler, it is a sickness. I am not sick." Tyler was crying now, tears streaming down his bruised face. "I love her. If you loved her," Sandro said, taking another step, "you would not be holding a gun to her head. You would not have pushed her down those stairs. I watched you do it. I watched you break her. And I felt the same rage you feel now." Sandro stopped. He reached into his coat. "Don't!" Tyler screamed. Sandro slowly, with 2 fingers, pulled out his own gun, a sleek, black pistol. He crouched down and placed it on the concrete floor. Then he stood up and kicked it away. It skittered across the floor, far out of reach. "I am unarmed," Sandro said. "Just you, me, and the woman we both claim to love." He walked forward. He was 10 feet away. "Stop!" Tyler was shaking. The gun barrel wavered against Madeline's head. "Why are you doing this?" "Because she deserves better than us," Sandro said. He looked directly at Tyler, his eyes boring into him. "She deserves to be free. Look at her. Tyler, look at what you are doing. Is this love? Is this how you want her to remember you? As the monster?" Tyler looked down at Madeline. He saw the terror in her eyes. He saw the tears. For a split second, the delusion cracked. He saw himself. Tyler's grip loosened just a fraction. The gun moved an inch away from her head. That was all Madeline needed. She did not wait for saving. She drove her elbow back hard into Tyler's broken ribs. Tyler screamed, the sound ripping out of his throat as the pain blinded him. He doubled over, staggering back. Madeline threw herself to the floor, scrambling away on hands and knees. "Maddie!" Tyler roared. The pain turned instantly back into rage. He raised the gun, aiming not at Sandro, but at her retreating back. Sandro moved. He did not dive for his gun. He did not run for cover. He reached into the small of his back, a blur of motion, a second gun, a backup piece he hadn't surrendered. Tyler fired. The bullet sparked off the concrete inches from Madeline's foot. Sandro fired once. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Tyler jerked backward as if he had been kicked in the chest. He spun around and collapsed, clutching his right shoulder. His gun clattered away. Sandro was moving before the echo faded. He kicked Tyler's gun into the shadows and stood over him, his weapon trained on Tyler's head. Tyler writhed on the ground, blood pooling under his shoulder. He was wailing, a high, keen sound of pain and defeat. Sandro's finger tightened on the trigger. The cold, black rage was there. It would be so easy. Just one squeeze, to end the threat, to end the man who had hurt her, to be the killer Angelo wanted him to be. "Sandro!" Madeline's voice. He froze. He looked up. She was sitting on the floor, dust on her face, looking at him. She was shaking, but her eyes were clear. She shook her head, just once. "Do not become him." Sandro exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. He lowered the gun. Outside. The sound of sirens began to rise, getting louder and louder. Tyler looked up, gasping. "Did you call the cops?" "I'm not a gangster today, Tyler," Sandro said, his voice tired. "Today, I'm just a concerned citizen who reported a kidnapping." The warehouse doors burst open. Uniformed officers, guns drawn, swarmed the building. "Drop the weapon, hands in the air!" Sandro placed his gun on the ground. He raised his hands. He did not see the police. He walked, slowly and deliberately, toward Madeline. "Sir, get down!" a cop yelled. Sandro ignored him. He reached Madeline. He fell to his knees and pulled her into his arms. She buried her face in his coat, sobbing. "You came," she wept. "You came. I told you," he whispered into her hair, his arms locking around her like bands of iron. "I would never let you go. It is over. Madeline, he's done. It is over." The police swarmed Tyler, handcuffing him as he screamed obscenities. They approached Sandro cautiously, but he did not resist. He just held her, shielding her from the noise, the lights, and the violence. Later, outside the warehouse, the sun was fully up. The air was crisp and cold. Tyler had been loaded into an ambulance, handcuffed to the stretcher. Vince Morano, implicating texts found on Tyler's phone already being sent to the precinct, was a problem for the lawyers now, not the soldiers. Sandro stood by his car. Madeline wrapped in a shock blanket. Angelo was there, talking to a police captain who seemed to know him. Sandro looked at Madeline. "I broke the rules," he said quietly. "Calling the police is not done. My men, they will not understand." "Then they are fools," Madeline said. She reached out, taking his hand. "You broke the rules to save your soul, and mine." He looked at her, and for the first time in years, the weight on his shoulders seemed to lift. "I am done with the war," he said. "I choose you." She squeezed his hand. "I know." 6 weeks had passed since the sirens wailed outside the abandoned warehouse. The new apartment was in Brooklyn Heights, a world away from the cramped shadows of the Bronx. It was bright, airy, and filled with the scent of fresh paint and the expensive lilies that arrived every Monday morning without a card. Madeline Carter stood by the window, holding a mug of tea. The cast was gone, replaced by a faint, pale line on her arm that the doctors said would fade with time. The bruises on her face were memories now, erased by rest, good nutrition, and the peace that came from knowing the monster was in a cage. Tyler Blake had been denied bail. The police, armed with the evidence Sandro had anonymously provided and the testimony of the warehouse incident, had charged him with kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, and attempted murder. He was looking at 20 years. He would be an old man before he ever saw the sun as a free citizen again. But it was not just the physical wounds that were healing. Madeline had started seeing a therapist, a kind woman with soft eyes who helped her untangle the knots of guilt and fear Tyler had tied in her mind. She was painting again, not just sketches, but real canvases, vibrant, angry, hopeful splashes of color that filled the spare room she had turned into a studio. Emily was safe. She was back in school, living in the second bedroom, her laughter returning slowly but surely. Everything was perfect. Everything was exactly what Madeline had prayed for, except for the silence. Sandro had paid for the apartment. He paid for the security system. He paid for the therapist, but he did not visit. He had retreated to his tower in Manhattan, a dragon guarding his hoard from a distance. He called once a week, brief, polite conversations where he checked on her safety and then hung up before she could ask him how he was. He was keeping his promise to protect her, but he was breaking her heart in the process. Across the river, inside the penthouse that touched the clouds, Alessandro Sandro Romano was fighting a different kind of war. The council meeting had been brutal. 12 men, the heads of the families, sat around a table in a smoke-filled room in New Jersey. They were old, hard men who believed in blood for blood. Silence above all else. "You called the police." Alessandro, one of the dons, a man named Rossi, spat. "You involved the law in our business. You handed a man over to the courts. This sets a dangerous precedent." "I handled a liability," Sandro replied, his voice steady, though he was exhausted. "Tyler Blake was a loose cannon. If I had killed him, Vince Morano would have used it to rally the streets against us. He would have claimed I murdered a civilian. By letting the law take him, I neutralized the threat and denied Morano his martyr. It was clever," Angelo admitted from his side, trying to keep the peace. "Morano has no move. He cannot retaliate for a police arrest." "It was soft," Rossi countered. "It shows you are unwilling to pull the trigger when it matters. It shows you are distracted by this woman." Sandro did not slam his fist on the table. He did not shout. He simply looked at Rossi with eyes so cold they could freeze the Hudson. "My territory is secure," Sandro said quietly. "My profits are up 10% this quarter, and my enemies are either in prison or hiding. If you think that is soft, Rossi, you are welcome to come to my tower and test me." The room fell silent. No one accepted the challenge, but later, alone in the penthouse, the doubt crept in. Rossi was wrong about the business, but he was right about the woman. Madeline was his weakness. Every time he thought of her, her laugh, the way she smelled like vanilla and rain, the way she had looked at him in that warehouse, he felt a terrifying crack in his armor. He had almost killed a man with his bare hands for her. He had almost started a city-wide war. It was dangerous to her. His world was too dark, too violent. He had saved her life. But now, he reasoned, he had to save her future by staying out of it. He was pouring himself a scotch, staring at the empty city lights. When the private elevator dinged, Sandro stiffened. He had not authorized any visitors. His hand moved instinctively toward the drawer where he kept his gun. The doors opened. It was not an assassin. It was Madeline. She wore a trench coat belted at the waist and rain boots. Her hair was loose, falling in soft waves around her face. She looked healthy, she looked beautiful, and she looked angry. "Madeline," Sandro said, setting the glass down. "What are you doing here? It is late. Where is your security detail?" "I told them to wait in the lobby," she said, marching into the room. She did not look at the view. She looked only at him. "You should not be here," Sandro said, his voice tight. "It is not safe." "Stop it," she said. He blinked. "Excuse me?" "Stop it," she repeated, stopping 3 feet from him. "Stop managing me. Stop handling me. Stop treating me like a cracked vase you are afraid to touch." "I am protecting you," he said, his jaw clenching. "I paid for the apartment. I ensured Tyler is gone. You have your life back. Madeline, you are free." "I am not free," she cried, her voice echoing in the vast, cold room. "I am alone. I am living in a beautiful box you bought for me, waiting for a phone call that lasts 2 minutes. You saved me from Tyler, Sandro, but now you are doing the exact same thing he did. You are deciding what is best for me without asking me what I want. I am nothing like him," Sandro growled, the comparison stinging him. "Then stop pushing me away," she shouted back. She took a breath, stepping closer, closing the distance until she could smell the scotch and the expensive musk of his cologne. "I went to therapy, Sandro. I talked about the abuse. I talked about fear. And do you know what I realized?" He stared at her, mesmerized by her fire. "What?" "I realized that for the first time in my life, I met a man who saw me, not as a possession, not as a victim, but as for me. You saw me in the stairwell. You saw me in the kitchen. You saw me in the warehouse." Her voice dropped to a whisper. She reached out, taking his hand. His fingers were rigid, but he did not pull away. "You think you are a monster because of what you did to those men," she said softly. "But a monster would not have stopped. A monster would not have called the police to save my soul. You are a good man, Alessandro. You are a hard man. Yes, but you are good." "I am dangerous," he rasped, his resistance crumbling. "My world will destroy you. Let me choose," she said. "I'm not asking for protection anymore. I can protect myself now. I am asking for you. I choose you, not because I need you to save me, but because I love who you really are." The walls he had built for 20 years shattered. He made a sound, something between a groan and a prayer, and pulled her to him. "Madeline," he breathed. He kissed her. It was hard, consuming, a release of weeks of denial and years of loneliness. He kissed her until the world outside the glass walls ceased to exist. He pinned her against the heavy oak door of his office, his hands tangled in her hair, his mouth devouring hers. "I tried," he murmured against her lips, his voice rough with emotion. "I tried so hard to leave you alone." "Don't," she whispered, her hands fumbling with his tie, pulling it loose. "Don't ever leave me alone again." He lifted her effortlessly, her legs wrapping around his waist, and carried her not to the bedroom, but to the leather sofa in front of the fire. He lowered her down, his body covering hers, a heavy, welcome weight. They undressed each other slowly, hungrily. There was no hesitation this time, no fear. Every touch was a reverence. He traced the line of her jaw, his fingers trembling. She ran her hands over the scars on his chest, the map of his violent life, and kissed them one by one. When they finally came together, it was with an aching, desperate emotion that transcended the physical. It was a reclaiming. It was a promise. Sandro moved with a fierce, possessive rhythm, watching her face, needing to see her pleasure, needing to know that she was with him, fully and freely. "I love you," he groaned, burying his face in her neck. "Madeline, God, I love you. I love you," she cried out, clinging to him. Later. The fire had burned down to embers. They lay tangled together on the sofa, covered by a cashmere throw. The city lights twinkled like diamonds below them. But for the first time, the penthouse didn't feel like a fortress. It felt like a home. Sandro ran his hand down her back, marveling at the warmth of her skin. Madeline rested her head on his chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. You know, she murmured sleepily, tracing a pattern on his arm. "You still owe me dinner, a real one. Not just you watching me eat." Sandro chuckled. It was a rusty, unfamiliar sound, deep in his chest. "I suppose I do. Perhaps I can learn to cook something other than espresso. We can work on it," she laughed. The sound of their laughter filled the room, chasing away the last of the shadows. Sandro closed his eyes, feeling a sensation he hadn't recognized in decades. Peace. The silence was broken by the buzz of his phone on the coffee table. The old Sandro would have tensed. He would have answered with a growl. The new Sandro simply sighed, kissed the top of Madeline's head, and reached for the device. "Romano!" he answered. It was Angelo. His voice was excited, breathless. "Alessandro, we just got word. Vince Morano is gone." Sandro sat up slightly. "Gone? What do you mean?" "He left the city an hour ago. Private flight to Las Vegas. The word is he got spooked, with Tyler singing to the cops and the investigation opening up his text history. Vince thought he was next. He ran. Sandro. He abandoned the East Blades. The territory is ours. The war is over before it even starts." Sandro listened, looking down at the woman in his arms. She was looking up at him, her blue eyes curious, trusting. "Let him go," Sandro said. "If he comes back, we bury him. But for now, let him run." "Understood, boss. Buonanotte." Sandro hung up. He tossed the phone onto the floor. "What is it?" Madeline asked. "Business," Sandro said, pulling the blanket tighter around her. "But it is finished." "The war is over." "Is it?" she asked softly. "Yes," he said. He kissed her forehead, then her nose, then her lips. "Now, tell me about this art studio you want to open." 3 months later, the small cafe in Brooklyn was bustling. It was a charming space, with exposed brick walls covered in local art and the rich, heavy scent of roasted coffee filling the air. It was called the Phoenix. Madeline moved through the tables, carrying a tray of cappuccinos. She was radiant. She wore a simple white dress, her hair tied back with a silk ribbon. There was no fear in her gait. She greeted customers by name, laughing at a joke from a regular, pausing to adjust a painting on the wall, one of her own. In the corner, at a small, reserved table, sat a man in a dark suit. Alessandro Romano did not look like the other patrons. He radiated power, but he was not looking at his phone. He was not looking at the door. He was watching her. He watched her smile at a child. He watched her wipe down a counter with efficient grace. He watched the way the sunlight caught her hair. He sipped his espresso, which was excellent thanks to her training, and felt a profound sense of gratitude. He was still the boss. He still ran the city. But the darkness that had consumed him for so long had receded. He went home every night to a woman who loved him, not for his money or his power, but for the man who had sat in the dark with her when she was afraid. Madeline looked up. Her eyes found him across the crowded room. She paused, her face lighting up with a smile that was just for him. She winked. Sandro smiled back. It was a small smile, but it reached his eyes. He watched her turn back to her customers. Free, happy, and alive. "She thinks I saved her," he whispered to himself. Taking a sip of his coffee, he shook his head, his gaze filled with an overwhelming, permanent love. "She saved me first. Thank you so much for listening to this story. It has been a journey of darkness, healing, and the kind of love that can change a person's soul. I hope Madeline and Sandro's story touched your heart. Please let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe to Mafia Romance Stories and hit the like button. Share your thoughts in English in the comments below. I read every single one. Until next time.